Maddow and Scarborough, 2 views of the Brooks Brothers riot of 2000. Ooh, so this is actually interesting. So at the heart of my commentary, if you have watched the Bad Faith pod that we live streamed on my stream a couple days ago with brilliant leftists, Virgil brought up the Brooks Brothers riot of 2000, where the election was stolen from Al Gore, who was a gigantic pussy and fucking totally caved. Where in the state of Florida, a recount was supposed to happen, and that recount was fucking cast away by a conservative majority Supreme Court. And Al Gore didn't push back too hard against it, but there were even riots in that circumstance. It was called the Brooks Brothers riots. The Brooks Brothers riots were, get this, led by a man who loves to get his wife fucked by nubile men, young nubile men. That man's name is Roger Stone, friend to Alex Jones and Donald Trump. This is the only time I can use nubile, by the way, which is a disgusting word otherwise. Aren't you part of Antifa, bro? They act like brown shirts. You are the last person on earth to give your thoughts on politics. Stick to video games, kid. I love that. Thank you for saying I should stick to video games. It's very nice of you. I will.
On November 22nd,
let's take a look.
2000, weeks after the president. On November 22nd of the year 2000, weeks after the presidential election that year, we still did not know who had won Florida and who had therefore won the presidency. Over 10,000 ballots remained to be counted by the Miami-Dade Elections Board. When Republican operatives, who the Bush campaign had flown in from around the country, heard that that count in Miami was going to go forward, the count of those 10,000 plus remaining ballots, those GOP operatives decided they would physically shut down that count. The 2 direct organizers of the mob that turned up at the Miami elections office were New York State Republican Party chairman at the time, Brendan Quinn, and New York Republican Congressman John Sweeney, who's now better known for losing his seat in Congress after multiple DUI arrests and domestic violence allegations from his wife. And
dude, come on, that's a Republican right there. Pretty poggers.
An odd proclivity for showing up at frat parties and having his picture taken there, too. The mob that the GOP sent to stop that count in Miami was billed at the time as a spontaneous grassroots uprising, one that just happened to be made up of no one at all from Miami, all Republican national operatives, including at least a half dozen who, according to IRS records, received payment for their services from the Bush-Cheney recount committee. Here were the Brooks Brothers rioters, you know, just a bunch of ordinary Americans who wanted to see justice done, who were moved to spontaneous protest. Rioter 1 here, Tom Pyle, an aide to Republican Congressman Tom DeLay. Rioter 2, Gary Melfris, former staff director of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Criminal Justice. Rioter 3, Rory Cooper, staff member with the National Republican Congressional Committee. Rioter 4, Kevin Smith, former House Republican conference analyst. Rioter 5, Stephen Brophy, former aide to Senator Fred Thompson. Rioter 6, Matt Schlapp, Bush campaign staffer. Rioter 7.
Oh shit, Matt Schlapp. He is the current. Isn't he the chairman of the American Yeah, Matt Schlapp. Wait. Yeah, Matt Schlapp is the American political activist and lobbyist who's the chairman of the American Conservative Union, the oldest conservative lobbying organization. He's also a routine Fox News contributor now. He was, of course, President George W. Bush's deputy assistant and political director during his first term. Very interesting that he is there just upset about the Florida results. Can you maybe lend some insight into why I'm seeing a lot of fellow lib-leaning friends on social medias mocking RGB's death, such as Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
Make that pull-out game
I think people just don't care,
Bruh.
which is understandable. I think most people don't care. I am of the belief that people who even act like they care don't really care. I don't. I'm sorry. Like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was 87 years old and had cancer since 1999, dude. Like, it was on fucking borrowed time for like the majority of her fucking Supreme Court, years.
His name
like,
is Hasan.
It's nuts that we did not fucking replace her in 2008. It's literally crazy. Or 2009. Or 2010, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, it's not very girl boss of me, but I care a lot more. I care a lot more about what this will do to our future with a permanent supermajority in the Supreme Court, or whatever psychopathic Republican parasite that they're going to appoint to that position, and what that's going to do to our country, and how it's going to escalate the situation further, how it's going to accelerate our inevitable demise into fascism. That's something I care about. That's something I consider. Not fucking RBG's personal legacy or whatever. I don't care.
Roger
nice.
Moore.
I also hate women. Yeah, if you want to say that I hate women, like, you have every right to do so. That's perfectly fine. I think RBG's legacy is important for female lawyers and women who want to become Supreme Court justices, and that's great. But outside of that, like, very specific subsect of people, I don't give a fuck. I give a fuck about how she's deliberated, and also what's going to happen now that she's gone.
Aide to Republican Congressman Van Hillary. Rioter 8, Dwayne Gibson. Aide to Republican Congressman Don Young. Rioter 9, Chuck Royal. Aide to then Republican Congressman Jim DeMint. And Rioter 10, Lena McConkey, former assistant to Republican Jim Ross Lightfoot. Many of the Brooks Brothers rioters went on to pretty good jobs in the Bush-Cheney administration. That mob scene they participated in became something that Republicans put on their resumes when applying for the right kind of Republican Party job.
Remember whenever they say, like, oh, these are Soros-backed protesters, when I tell you they're absolutely projecting, this is it.
The right kind of conservative.
Like, liberals always got George Soros protesters. It's like, no, they're fucking projecting. Also, Rachel Maddow used to be pretty based.
Movement job. Well, now, the teabag healthcare riots that we're seeing, the shout 'em down, shut 'em down thuggery being staged right now at town hall meetings about healthcare, is again a source of conservative pride, as corporate lobbying groups brag about their ability to turn out the mobs to shut down the democratic process. Because, of course, the single most important piece of the history of the Brooks Brothers riot is that it worked. Joining us now is Chris Hayes, Washington editor of The Nation magazine. Chris, thanks very much for coming on the show.
My man.
Thanks for having me, as always, Rachel.
In trying to make sense of the healthcare town meeting mob scenes that we're seeing organized now and the strategy here, do you think this is the same kind of strategy that was behind the Brooks Brothers riot in Florida?
I think it is very similar. I mean, I think the key phrase is something that was uttered by Congressman Sweeney and actually reported by a conservative editorialist of the Wall Street Journal back in 2000, which was that when he heard about what was going on with the recount, he issued the order to, quote, shut it down. I think shut it down kind of epitomizes exactly what the strategy is. I mean, it's hard for me to even talk on the television while they're screaming shut it down. And I can imagine that it's difficult to sort of conduct any kind of public discourse, any kind of small d democratic politics in the face of this sort of implacable bullying, braying, and intimidation. And shut it down, I think, is really the kind of catchphrase for everything that we're going to be seeing through the August recess in these town halls.
Right. It's not about making one side of the argument in an argument, it's making sure there can be no argument. Right. Chris, one of the great regrets of Democrats that I have heard over the past decade is that they weren't called by their party to go fight in Florida the way that Republicans called their people to go fight in Florida. Looking back on Florida 9 years down the road, now that we know what happened there, can you imagine how things might have worked out if Democrats had done the same thing that Republicans did? I mean, is it conceivable that they might have asked for Democrats to go there?
Well, I mean, to consider the counterfactual, I think it's undeniable the Democrats got out-hustled and they got out-organized. And I want to say, at a certain level, right, what the right is doing right now, it's corporate-sponsored and it's AstroTurf, but it's organizing. They're coordinating. There is a set of very powerful interests that are spending literally millions of dollars a day to defeat this agenda, and they are coordinating it. And the answer in a free democratic republic like our own is to meet organizing with more organizing, to not get out-hustled, to make sure that people who have been, are going bankrupt from the health insurers are showing up at these meetings in blue dog districts, etc. So I think there's a really crucial lesson from Florida, which is that you can't get out hustled. You need to organize. And this is, look, democracy is about the nonviolent resolution of political conflict. And there is political conflict here, and Democrats have to organize their own forces.
The other approach to it, the other strategic lesson that could be taken here is that I think the lesson that...
How do you study people who lie all day in politics but can't lie for shitting among us? Wait, I can't personally lie, but I think I'm pretty good when I know when someone's lying. I mean, a big factor in trying to figure out who's lying is also their body, like their cues, their past behavior. There's a limited amount of cues that you can clue in on when you're trying to figure out if someone's lying in a short period of time. But even with all of that, I still think I'm pretty decent at like figuring out who's lying, but not necessarily good at lying myself. And unfortunately, I've never been good, and I won't be good in the... I'm trying to get better, but... You're good at changing the conversation when your partner is sus? I think so. Lying in Among Us is one of your best quality in the game. Really? You think I'm good at lying? What's your opinion on Rachel's show 2020? Too much Russia? Yeah, she fucking sucks now. You're good at changing the conversation when your partner is sus. You have to believe it's true. Spotting lies and lying is very different. To convincingly lie in Among Us, you need to prepare a good story and deliver it. Yeah. I'm not very good at lying. I don't think I'm very good at lying. You're good at lying. You lie every day on stream. Yeah. I lie to you, brother. I lie to you when I say I want Joe Biden to win and Donald Trump to lose, even though I'm secretly a Trump supporter.
That the Obama folks took from this past year's presidential campaign, where they didn't try to organize people to go to McCain-Palin rallies to shout down the kill 'em all rhetoric that they were hearing from their crowds. They publicized it, essentially, that they used those as displays of extremism to try to splinter the people who were on the right, who were either tolerating that stuff or denouncing it. Is it possible that the Obama folks will take that same approach to this display of extremism at these town halls?
I think that's exactly what you're already seeing. I mean, this is sort of signature Obama political strategy, which is a kind of judo, right? To kind of use the excesses of your enemy against them. And I think that you're already seeing the DNC and other people sending the message out, showing the signs of swastikas that are showing up at these rallies, the images of Stalin, the screaming, the sort of red-faced, spittle-flecked anger that's coming out in these.
Very different. Very different than what they do now.